Hello, welcome to the Paintingphase. I'm Jeff. This is Bella.
And I'm Patrick.
How are you, Pat?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Nice.
Right, I'm going to put this fairy lump down. Go on then. See you in a minute.
The downside of recording at the table, we thought we'd throw it back. I miss the table. But the downside, the big downside is you can't really see the dog.
Limited Bella.
Yeah.
Well,
I can see the dog.
Depending on interviews and whatnot, you might end up back on the sofa. She'll be around intermittently.
Yeah.
Maybe if we have treats, you might just see her head popping up in future to grab something.
Yeah.
Right then. So, the main crux of this show has been...
Let's get straight into it.
Yes. Has been the release of the Dark Angels Terminator box.
Oh, yeah.
Which is called, what are they calling it? Deathwing Assault.
Oh, yes.
Get straight to the point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've had the box. We've had a bit of a look through it. We're not going to really do an unboxing because
people have seen all that before.
Yeah, because them lucky devils that get it early than us, I've done a good job of doing that for you. But we have had a bit of a sit and a look through it, and it has provoked some questions, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Because you get 2 Terminator kits. Mm-hmm. And you get your knights as well. But you get 2 upgrade sprues.
Yes.
And in the upgrade sprues are some sculpted shoulder pads with your Deathwing little symbol on there.
Yeah.
And you also get your transfer sheet, but you don't get transfers to put on Terminator shoulder pads.
Yes.
So they seem to be sort of pushing you down the sculpted on detail route. You still have the shoulder pads from the normal Terminator kit, so you can just put those on. But like, this is my first sort of like Deathwing purchase. I'm not flush in Dark Angels decals. But then like, I've got a few from buying other Space Marine bits and bobs. But I thought it was interesting, the decal versus sculpted on detail debate.
Well, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because they aren't actually Dark Angel kits, like Imperial Fists, if you will. Outside of characters and so on, there isn't that much of them. You really need to be, and don't get me wrong, I know most people who wanted one could get one. We've talked about this before. You really, at the moment, have to dip into Leviathan to get Dark Angels because they're on their transfer sheet, but they don't have they don't seem to have a particularly extensive amount of options as to where to be able to get one.
Yeah,
it's a bit different from Black Templar, where Black Templars did a very nice upgrade sprue, which came with some molded shoulder pads as well, but was very much geared towards, I would say, towards the idea of doing sergeants and things, or the equivalent of sergeants and things. So because the problem you've got even further with
rank and file, it was a bit naff.
Because the problem you've got even further with Black Templars is they don't have a squad shoulder pad. Both shoulder pads are crosses. They don't. They denote through depending on how invested you get in them. You can change what squad they are by what stripe they have around their shoulder pad.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, like the red trim and
So you have that, but they don't have a lot of other options. So you end up using a lot of shoulder pads if you're doing if you're doing them the standard way, both shoulders. But what I'm getting at here in the Black Templar's defense is the decal sheets are really good.
Yeah. They're
very extensive. And the other thing as well, if you are just about to start collecting Black Templars, the great thing about Black Templars is that unlike a lot of the other Space Marine logos, Games Workshop can't put an IP on the Templar cross because it's obviously hundreds upon hundreds of years old. So if you are about to just start collecting Black Templars, I can name him because he's not doing anything illegal, is Mighty Brush.
Yeah, Mighty Brush,
Luther at the Mighty Brush does some really nice Black Templar, does some really nice quite in-depth Black Templar decals. And also, as does our friend Sander.
Scumbag Customs.
Scumbag Customs, who does amazing decals across the board, and we probably heard us mention him 100 times, but he's really, really good as well. So the cross is quite a good one for that, but you can't really do it on the Sly version of Dark Angels, really, because it's a very unique looking thing with the broken sword and the wings and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird one.
Where do you stand with detail, the sculpted on detail versus decals?
Well, it's funny.
As someone has started doing some drilling next door, hopefully that doesn't come through the mics too badly.
It's a weird one, really, because I started out with Black Templars. When I was making this Black Templar style army for my son, is that the way I cheated my way around it was, I only gave one molded shoulder pad out, and I used the squad element for the other one, because the sort of leaning into that Black Templar thing, but not fully going for it. So it doubled my number of pads.
Okay.
And then I still ran out, and I thought, do you know what? There's only so many times I financially can really dip into going and buying more upgrade sprues and buying more Crusade squads for, or even Sword Brethren, for the sake of, I was almost buying a bits box. You know what I mean? Instead of, so, it's not financially great, but I'm now personally starting to lean more into decals, because as everybody's imagined that you have, when it comes to experts in painting, you've got Cult of Paint, and I'm pretty much just right up there with them.
Of course, you and Henry like that.
Henry that. So Henry, in being serious about it, Henry has, with the new Terminators for Dark Angels, is either shaving the designs off, or he's using Terminators that don't have them on already. And he's doing this because he thinks that your ability to manipulate a transfer into looking chipped and weathered and staining it and whatnot is easier to do with a decal than it is to do with a molded one. And I'm increasingly starting to feel like that myself. I was going to get myself some Black Templar doors from Archie's Forge for a Land Raider that I'm going to build.
Yeah.
And I'd had these previously for a Repulsor, and I put them on and I really liked them. I thought they looked really great. It saved loads of effort with regards to decals. And now I don't like them. And I've got them and they're staying on. I'm not doing anything about it. I don't like them. I'm about to build another Repulsor, and I nearly went back and went, right, doors for them. And I thought, no, do you know what? I'm not going to. I'm going to go decals, because I think the chipping effect and all of that looks better. So I'm not going to. So was very strongly molded, and all of that. Someone doing it all for you in advance was great, and I'm finding myself now starting to slide toward decals. So that's probably where I am.
Interesting. Yeah, I like my experiences with it when I first started and I got my first Space Marines. I first started when I was at workshop and all that sort of stuff. I think I was very much pro sculpted on detail, because I tried to do some decals and not knowing what to do. It's like, oh, what slide transfers? Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember. Cut them out, wet them, put them on. They look crap. Why hasn't it gone around the shoulder pad properly and all that sort of stuff? And then when I don't know if they still do it now, I presume they do. You get, when you start working at Games Workshop, you get this little starter box, and I got a Dreadnought and then that 3 Marines and the paint set that you get, and they have sculpted ultramarine shoulder pads.
They do, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I painted one of them and brought it into the office, and I was like, oh, it's my first Space Marine, and people were like, oh, whoa, you free-handed the chapter symbol. I was like, no, I didn't. It was there already. And I was very much pro sculpted on detail to begin with, because I think it's easier than faffing on with transfers. And this was before I knew about Microset and Microsol and all those various bits and pieces. So I was very much pro. I think it just makes them look like I'm building the regular Terminators from this box at the minute. And with the upgrade sprue, you got a feather on the gun, you've got the Deathwing symbol on the shoulder, and I look at it and go, yeah, that's Deathwing.
Yes.
Before I've painted it,
Yes.
it looks like it's a Dark Angel Terminator, which is a plus, I think. Less steps involved, which I think is a plus. So I think, and it does look really cool. As the more I carry on, I think I'm sort of like, I think it was Maverick Paints. He did a show on, this is how I do decals. Mm-hmm. And I've followed that, and I have got good results on, I think it was on some of the Iron Warriors that I did a while ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it's quite a process. I think you can skip a few out if you've got a really good matte varnish.
Yes.
But I was putting a layer of gloss varnish on, putting the transfer on. Well, no. Oh, I'm forgetting it all. So, gloss varnish, let that dry for ages, as I found out recently. Preparing the surface with some microset, putting the transfer on, putting microsol over the top of that,
yes,
glossing over it, and then matting over it.
Yes.
So that is 6 steps.
Yes.
Whereas I could go, contrast red, done.
Yeah.
So it's a faff. I have had people say, just gloss it. I think Richard Gray says just use microset.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's not a believer in microsol. Mm-hmm. Don't gloss it again. Just matte it down. So that's like 3 steps. Mm-hmm. I think something along those lines. I'm yet to try it because I'm always nervous that if I could just cock it up. But like AK Ultra Matte is insane.
Yes,
it's a really great, really good varnish. There was another one. They do Water Plus and that sort of stuff. Insta, yeah, or Instar.
Instar, yes.
They do a really good matte varnish as well. So I've used that and that's fantastic.
We haven't mentioned Instar in a while. They're a great little crew.
Fantastic.
Family owned, British.
Yeah,
which is lovely. I'm don't get me wrong. I'm very happy to buy things from wherever in the world it's best. But it's nice to have something that is sort of in the UK. But they make some great stuff as well.
So I putting on decals is a faff. Done right, they can look absolutely incredible. Done wrong with that process, as I found out when I tried some airbrushing recently, was they just like melted all the way back through to the plastic and destroyed some of my miniatures, and they had a bath in some paint stripper. But I do really like. I'm certainly going through my streak and grime phase at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think I'm quite enjoying weathering and chipping, and just because I make loads of mistakes when I'm painting, that I'm like, I just turn that into weathering, and you can get away not being as neat and that sort of stuff. Whereas I think maybe it comes from a point of view of just my sort of inexperience poking through. Is I wouldn't think that I could make chipping like look as good on a sculpted sculpted piece. And then, I mean, decals are way more available. Has there been sculpted Dark Angel shoulder pads, Deathwing shoulder pads before?
I don't know. I know this isn't the first upgrade sprue for Dark Angel since Primaris. They have had one before, but I must be honest and can't say I remember what was on it. I think the thing is I think you've also got to spare a thought, because there is plenty of people who play chapters of Marines out there that don't get any option to this at all.
Yes, yeah.
And, and you feel like, we're sitting here going, which do I prefer best? And, there's some poor Raptors player there probably sitting there going, yeah, well, I've only got one bloody option, and they've only just started giving me transfers. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So
I bought some, because GW don't make Flesh Terror transfers, I don't think.
They don't make, at the moment, they don't know.
No.
Many moons ago, some people will remember this, when you used to buy a specific box that was Blood Angels or Dark Angels or whatever it was, many moons ago, the transfer sheet also used to have transfers on it for some of the successors.
Ooh.
And Flesh Tearers used to be on with the Blood Angels.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. That's interesting. So, yeah, in my... and I'd still like to at some stage. I think I quite like to, instead of painting armies, I might do like war bands.
Yes.
Might have maybe a couple of armies, but lots of war bands. So quicker and easier to paint and probably more interesting, like videos and things like that.
Well, you never know. We might eventually, who knows, start to lean into Kill Team because you can play it relatively quickly, and then you can have 10 of lots of tens of things, can't you?
Yes. And I really wanted to paint a bunch of Flesh Tearers, and I think Infernal Brush he did a heavy metal like Flesh Tearer Terminator, and it looked incredible, and I definitely wasn't going to try and copy that, but wonderful inspiration. And I was like, right, transfers, can't find any, and I bought some third-party transfers, and they must have been misaligned in the printing because there was this yellow fringing around everything. So I bought loads of transfers, enough for kind of like a Leviathan box of Marines, and there was yellow fringing around the buzzsaw and then the teardrop as well. And I was like, oh, well, I can't use those. But then I found, somebody sent me, I should say, a link to some 3D printed versions that you could put on shoulder pads. And I was like, yes. And the quality of those was better than the transfers, like third-party transfers. Like, I've never had any issues with Mighty Brush, never had any issues with Scumbag Customs, but this didn't come from those guys. But then we did get
the Scumbag Customs Flesh Tearer sheet with a thing of beauty. And there's some amazing stuff on there. Yeah,
those came through as well after I'd already ordered the 3D print things, and they were exceptional. So I mean, maybe that's another video in itself.
Well, I've got because I sort of started to go down this weird rabbit hole, as I always do when it comes to badges and rank and who has what in this Space Marine army. I increasingly set out a plan of like going, if you're this, you get that. If you're this rank or that, you get the other. So I have got some molded. Funnily enough, they're not molded shoulder pads. They are just molded symbols of Black Templar crosses, to be fair, that are actually already pre-carved.
Yes, so same as
these,
the Flesh Tearer ones that I've got,
Pop Goes the Monkey.
Oh, right,
done them, and I am putting them on all the Terminators. And what was really nice as well with them is that the cross is actually just the right curve to also fit on the knee of the Terminator captain as well, because it wants to look very grand and very Templar.
Yeah, of course.
So he's got because obviously you'll have noticed, because you've built loads of them lately, Terminators have two variants of knee, don't they, where they actually have a knee cap, or it's just a long shield that comes up over the knee.
Yeah.
Well, the captain has the second option, so the cross would fit on there and look quite cool. So yeah, I feel sorry for some of the other people who play different chapters. It's like sitting there going, oh, that's a nice problem to have, because I think things like Imperial Fists and stuff, it can't be, unless someone's really just hoping Games Workshop doesn't come looking at them, it can't be that easy laying your hands on fists in circles for sure on Marine shoulder pads. I'm sure someone's probably doing it until such point in time as they get told to stop. But so if you're an Imperial Fist player, the only place you really get molded shoulder pads is on your characters. So so
you are going to have to go, if you want that sculpted detail, you are going to have to go third party, aren't you?
Yeah.
Or just two transfers. Yeah. So I think at the minute, currently today, I might feel differently after I paint all of those. I'm like, sculpted detail's amazing. Transfers are shit. I think I'm currently in the decal camp.
Right.
Because I'd feel more confident I can make them look how I want to. Mm-hmm. And because I don't hold that much faith in my skill as a painter, having that perfect shape already exist takes the work out for me. Granted, the perfect shape exists on the shoulder pad, but if I was weathering it and chipping it up, I don't know. Maybe you could take a knife or a file to it and carve some chunks out or something. I might have a play. Might have a play and see what it's like. But currently, Decal Camp. Shall we see how our patrons voted?
Yeah, absolutely right. Before we do though, just like to say, since the Black Templars, that's got to be one of the best upgrade sprues I think I've seen. I love the fact it's got a book that can go on. Generally, your book you normally see on the front of Land Raiders at the door and things like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe even for, well, I was going to say for Land Speeders, but Land Speeders have took a bit of a nosedive, haven't they, since...
have they? What's it with Land Speed? Diversion. What's it with Land Speeders?
Well, maybe not really, because the old Land Speeders used to be very much a Raven Wing thing, and I know they'll probably... We haven't looked in the new codex yet. I'm sure they still are, but they used to have like a commander of the Raven Wing who had his own land speeder with a big book on it and stuff like that.
Right,
so I think some of that might be the idea of going back to that, but I don't know. But I think it's very sad that if you are a Raven Wing fan, there is literally just one set of feathers for your bike. You're going, that's either going to be a really expensive upgrade to do all of your bikes like that. It's nice that they do badges for the bikes though, or fingers crossed they'll do bikes for Raven Wing. Which would be cool if they do. I think that would be the better option. But it's a really nice sprue, though. But yes, let's see what our learned patrons are saying about the whole.
So we did a poll, and Sculpted on Detail versus Decals.
Cool.
The winner with 65% of the vote to 34. That doesn't add up.
Was the 1% don't know?
Somebody abstained.
Just with don't care.
Is Sculpted on Detail. Out and out winner. And we got a bunch of comments.
Good.
Because I asked for people to say why. I've just seen on my doorbell that the postie's outside, so I might have to run downstairs in a second if he rings the doorbell. Okay, so John says decals because you can use them for what you want instead of being locked in. For instance, I'm doing the Space Wolf Combat Patrol as wolf spears, which means all those black mane shoulders, and I will be back momentarily.
Okay.
And we are recording again. I've got a box of, as I hide our address so I don't dox myself, Space Crusade. Yeah, I'm looking forward to opening it.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, yes. So, Space Wolves, Wolf Spears, which means all those black mane shoulder pads are going into my bits box. On that note, I wish Games Workshop would let you order decals for the different armies individually. Yes, they absolutely should.
Yeah.
It can't be that hard to put the different chapters, craft worlds, or whatever as print on demand. They have all the assets already. Yeah.
Well, the thing there as well, again, going back to the good old days, I haven't looked at Space Wolves lately, so you please feel free to go, no, actually, you're wrong. But again, back in the day, in 3rd edition Space Wolf Codex, because that's what I used to play, every company of Space Wolves had a different badge.
Oh, okay.
Which was the sort of badge of their leader. It's not just like 3rd company badge or this badge. It was like the badge of it was the heraldry of your boss.
Okay. Yeah.
And they used to do on the Space Wolf decal sheet would do all of the companies.
Oh, right. And
then weirdly, just over time, Blackmane, even though bear in mind he's not the chapter master, but he's one of the side on Black Wolf head, increasingly just became the one that was. It was the Space Wolf equivalent of Ultramarines. He just kept, whenever you got a Space Wolf box, they all had that one.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as far as I understand it, all the other ones just fizzled out, which is such a shame.
Yeah.
And so I understand what our patron there is saying, is the fact that, he's just having to take them all other ones and stick them in a box and go, they're not really for me,
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing, I think, sometimes with Games Workshop with this whole thing is that they make a big thing of going, in stories and art and all the rest of it and background that they've built up over long periods of time, different guys doing this and different badges for that, and then go, but we don't actually make them,
Yeah.
And it was nice because I had a real whinge over Raptors being something that Games Workshop often used in art and
Yes.
one thing or another, and then didn't support them.
Yeah.
And then
They now do.
And then suddenly did, which I've personally got it wrong and thought Raptors were being supported, because in my mind I made what is now a poor prediction, was that they were going to become the Scouts for Kill team.
Yeah.
But then it was interesting that they didn't just go Ultramarine; they actually did go Raven Guard.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
which was cool. Yeah, so I do feel for him, because it has been a bit of a left of the lights for Space Wolf players.
Yeah. I really would like, because I think Forge World do some transfer kits, don't they?
Yeah, still, I think so. I don't know whether they're increasingly now more just becoming the Horus Heresy ones, but they used to do some really beautiful ones. My God, they weren't cheap.
Yeah.
They were like 20-something pound for a transfer.
Oh, right, yeah.
But they were really nice to be fair. Lots of gold and things like that. So they probably were more expensive to produce.
Yeah. Because the impression I get with third-party transfers is you can kind of get away with doing them, but if you look at Mighty Brush, they used to do the Flesh Terrors, and they were kind of like...
And they used to do Raptors.
And they used to do Raptors. The Raptors are now... official. Yeah. So maybe Flesh Terrors might become as well. But if it's obscure chapters and that kind of thing, like, I mean, it would be great if they did everything and gave people all the choice ever, because that would be wonderful. But it is an unrealistic option, isn't it? If that was somebody's first kit, and like, I think for beginners, Sculpted on Detail just is better.
Oh yeah, by far and away, yeah.
I think if that was someone's first kit, they're not going to open it and go, oh, well, I've been watching all these Cult of Paint videos and I really want to do all these transfers, because then I can weather them up and make them look how we're approaching this as people already in the hobby, I guess. It would be great to have all the assets and everything. I think that would be great. So Stephen says, I voted Decals because that option gives me more flexibility. Of course, could just do the sculpted details separately, so they could be stuck on where needed. I think, I guess that's what the upgrade sprues are. What I don't like about the upgrade sprues is they're quite expensive. They're usually about 25 quid, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
And if I wanted that just for the Terminators, I'd get 5 shoulder pads, I'd have the plasma gun and a sword and a few other little bits.
Yes.
And that would be it. Mm-hmm. So if I was trying to kit out, and again, it's quite niche, isn't it? If I was trying to do just Deathwing and just have a Deathwing army, which I know people do.
Yeah.
Like I've gone with the shoulder pads for this box, but if I then wanted some more, having transfers on them and then sculpting on detail on others might be a little bit like it looked like. I think it would probably annoy me. Yeah,
and also the sad thing is as well is that none of the Terminator shoulder pads in here you can't do any conversions for knights using them, because these aren't the knight ones, because the knights don't have like a halo around the top of the...
Yeah, they do, yeah.
So that it doesn't... It gives you Deathwing Terminator shoulder pads, which is great, but it then doesn't give you knight ones, so your options are... But then again, I suppose the idea is going, well, you'll have a knight kit, but if you want to try and design your own knight kit through conversions, it wouldn't be vastly helpful for you in this kit. Although, like I say, I do think it is still a really, 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 really nice kit that they've done, though.
Yeah.
But they do sort of have you by the nads a bit when it comes to certain things.
Games Workshop.
Yeah. It's like the transfer sheet that comes with, which is great that they do one at all, but transfer sheet that comes with the Black Templars is the one that has, on their upgrade kit, is the one, if I remember rightly, and I think I do, is the one that has Black Templar Tech Marine badges and Black Templar Apothecary badges and stuff like that.
Cool.
Are all in that one.
Yeah.
So again, if they don't get you one way, they'll get you another, won't they?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What else we got?
Yeah, so decals are good due to abundance and ease of use, but can't beat sculpted details for a better visual. So that's what Russ says. So yeah, that's a good point. I think, again, like unpainted, you can look at something and go, like if I put a normal Terminator there and you'd be like, "What chapter's that?" And you'd be like, "I don't know." Sculpted on detail. You know what it. You know what it is.
Even in the greys, you can tell. Yeah.
Both have their place. Decals are more practical. We've got a range of Morny Charmies painted up and on the table, but when it comes down to the look of well painted sculpted on detail, that can't be beat.
I don't know. I think I'd beg to differ there. I think I've seen
fight.
Yeah, I think I've seen Trevorian is another name that comes to mind. He did when they packaged the Blade Guard miniatures with the first release of the Lion.
Yep.
He did. He stripped some shields all the way back and battered them, and then quartered them into like a red and a cream sort of thing, and then put decals on them.
Yep.
And really hammered the detail on them, and they looked really, really good. I personally think that yes, a molded shoulder pad looks lovely, but I think the flexibility of a decal is far better. I think personally.
Yeah, I guess.
I think it comes down to your skill set, a lot of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've heard it before. I think it was Mr. Gray saying that the blank spaces that you get on Terminators, like your shoulder pads and like your big panels and all that sort of stuff, if you're left that space as a confident, competent painter, which is an understatement for the likes of Trevorian and Richard Gray, you can show off your skill and put that in there. Yeah. Whereas if there's loads of detail, that's actually maybe a bit easier for like novice painters like myself, because you're painting the detail and it looks a bit more visually appealing. Whereas if I did a Terminator or whatever with a shoulder pad that I didn't put anything on there, but then it'd be like, well, it's just a big yellow shoulder pad with, a crappy edge highlight on it. Like it, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's easy for, as much as I am team transfer, I think it is easy for Richard Gray to be able to say, oh, it gives you space to be able to put not only a bullet hole, but one with all of the cracking and spider webbing around it, like he did with that Deathwing Terminator that he painted a few months back.
Yeah, that is. I'd love to try that. Let's see if I could get any. Like, if someone looked at the Marine and went, "Oh, did you use Richard Gray's thing for that?" Like, just to look almost like it's comparable-ish. Obviously, like the quality would never be there, but because he does a lot of stippling and like the dry brushing sort of thing.
What you wouldn't want is someone to go, oh, like where you done like a little spider on his arm. You don't know it's meant to be cracked armor, actually. Oh, is it? Oh.
That's it. And the sculpted detail, it has to be like pre-cracked, or you have to go in and carve it out, don't you, if you want that sort of thing. So here's one for you. Love the look of sculpted details, but Black Templar scheme has made it an absolute misery to paint. Decals much easier to work with, but just don't look quite as nice as a crisp 3D detail. So saying that painting all of that sculpted detail is a pain in the arse.
Yeah. I think as well. I think I was thinking about it when you said it earlier. I'm not a person to give anybody really good advice for building an army, but I think if you are doing that long-winded process of the transfer of the decal, if you're doing that, I think the thing to do is don't try it. If you paint a squad of 10 men, don't do it after each man. Just wait till all 10 are done and then go all production line. I don't need to do all of the varnish, all of that, and I think that will take some of the hell out of it, instead of going, I'm going to do it individually after every single one, because I think that's the way madness lies. I think.
Yeah, definitely. Both are good. I like decals because they remind me of doing airfix when I was a kid, and if done right, they look ace. I've been using a lot of decals on my Legion Imperialis models, and it's been working great. The transfers for the shields on the Cities of Sigmar models were also amazing. I haven't seen those. I'll have to check them out. That said, when I build my Black Templars, I use 3D printed crosses for the shoulders, so I do think there is a place for each. Broadly, I'd say that decals are perfect for generic models, while the sculpted on details make the kit look like it was that one faction all along. So, On a side note, GW should suck it up and start selling microset and microsol in stores.
I think that
They're never going to sell anything that's not branded as them, is it?
Absolutely not.
Ever.
No.
Yeah.
I think the problem sometimes is it's very nice that they do nicely designed molded shoulder pads, and they're ones designed to go, that looks like it should be on a captain because it's nice, got a nice piece of rope around it, or it's got something on it. And it's lovely that they do that. But then but it also means that if you to pick some of the standard HQ choices that we've got behind us,
yeah,
you have to pick some of them up. Some of them have the shoulder pad is molded straight onto the arm.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, if you then make the decision of going, I'm going molded shoulder pads for my cool looking heroes.
You couldn't use any push fit anything, could you?
Yeah, you've got to sit there and start. Next thing you know, you've got pliers and you've got pliers and a scalpel out by the time to hack it all off smooth enough to then put the lovely molded shoulder pad that's come on your £25 kit on it.
Yeah.
And then it's the price, then you're going, well, in actual fact, by the time it's finished, that captain's cost me nearly blooming £50 to make him look more like a Black Templar or whatever it may be. So it's a really weird one. And it's one of those ones where, you know, you want to go, Games Workshop, sneaky so-and-sos. But I think they're doing their best to help you. Yeah. But I also, on some level, don't think there's a perfect answer for it, really.
No. I mean, I think from reading all of these, it purely depends on where you're at and what you're doing. And it's very specific to the person, I think, isn't it?
I think in some ways it'd be lovely to have... I think it'd be lovely to have so much one or the other that you never have to sit there and go, there is just so many shoulder pads for everything that you need.
Yeah.
Or there is no shoulder pads for what you need, that everybody's getting a decal, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, this could be great. I mean, this is where like your 3D printing comes in clutch, isn't it? Because they could do... I mean, if Games Workshop were ever to adopt anything like 3D printed, take that off the table. I think that would be fantastic for them to go, right. Anything like upgrade sprues could disappear, and you could walk in and go, oh, can I have 10 Deathwing symbols for Terminators?
Yeah.
Could I have 15 just for normal Marine shoulder pads?
Yeah.
And then you've got all of that flexibility. They don't have to make the stocks. It could be printed on demand. I think that would be like a really cool way of doing it.
And the thing is the problem, isn't it, is that there's just so much. Like, if you look at this, so many options which are great. Like, this has got Gravis on it, which is cool. It's got standard Marines on it. It's got Terminators on it. And then, is it this one? Or have I just been looking at it, or was it another one I was looking at? Yes, it's also got the cutaway Phobos shoulder pads. Yeah. Which is lovely. And you're going, that's all great. But then what it does is it leads you down that blooming awful rabbit hole, isn't it? You go, do you know what? I'm Phobos. I'm badging all the Phobos with these. Yeah. And then you go, oh, hang on a minute. I've got a 10-man squad of infiltrators, and I've got a 10-man squad of incursors. And then there's them 3 lieutenants I've got that wear Phobos, and then there's that captain who wears and next thing you know, you've spent you're nearly £100 deep in upgrade you know what I mean? That's the problem, is when you decide, and this is what gets me, when you decide in your little head canon of uniformity, you can just hear the cash register till pinging away as you start going, I'm doing all of this. Shit, that means 35 bloody shoulder pads of whatever, you know what I mean?
That's expensive, isn't it? It gets really, really expensive.
You know, so if you imagine there was to be a new upgrade sprue for something like Raven Guard, who, you know, if you're playing them quite akin to how they're meant to be played, that's meant to be like quite a lot of Phobos.
Okay,
and next thing you know,
sneaky.
And you're going, I'm not using decals, I'm using this. And next thing you know, your Raven Guard army cost even more money than it should do, because you've got so much of this, you know.
It'd be very impactful. It would look really
great,
cool, wouldn't it?
But that's like, say, that's the problem being is when you decide on your on the hill you're dying on based on shoulder pads. If you go the molded route, it can end up costing you quite a lot of money, I think, down the line.
It's a very niche hill to die on, isn't it?
It's a very niche hill to die on. Even in 40k, it's a very niche hill to die on. But and you know, and don't get me wrong, I think the decal sheet that does come with Deathwing Assault has some great stuff on it as well. Especially really good transfers. Looking at the size of some of them, are very blatantly designed to go on Land Raiders and bone coloured Land Raiders for Deathwing with really nice red transfers. Looks really good.
Like I would have preferred the decal sheet in here to just have the Deathwing transfers on.
Yeah.
Or more, like, because there's not an appropriate amount, so you have to go sculpted, don't you?
Yeah.
So
it does force your hand, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if they'd given you the option, well, I'm glad they did, because, you know, we've been chatting about it for an hour or so.
Yeah.
But it's something I'd never really sort of thought about before. And then now I'm like, oh, if I did have an army and there was a mismatch, what could be like the narrative reason?
Yeah.
You'd be like, these are just the reserve boys. Their armor's stock and it had to be painted on.
Well, I'm trying to, my way around it is I try to give molded Black Templar shoulder pads to sergeants.
Yeah.
So they all get one. So then they get a nice red cross, which donates the same as their helmet, because my son's army lives somewhere between following Codex Ultramarine in regards to red helmets and white helmets. Well, that sort of veteran thing. And then add a bit Black Templar, and they've got a Black Templar thing going on. So red molded crosses for sergeants. I feel like such a nerd, even within being in nerd culture.
I was going to say, does your son know any of this?
No. No.
Can we stop saying it's your son's army? Is it just yours?
It's my son's army. It's his army. I just happen to be it's a bit like,
you designed it and painted it and came with the lore.
Yeah. I may have played it a bit.
More than him, but that's not the point.
It's his army.
Yeah.
I feel exposed.
Sorry, Jeff. I've done you dirty.
I know. But a bit like, like when designers dress people for the Oscars.
Yeah,
I'm a bit like that, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I have put all of the work and effort, but it is yours.
Yes.
Even though people will, when they say, "What are you wearing?" they won't say my dress. They'll say Dior.
Oh, yeah.
You go, what are you playing? The army my dad completely and utterly took command of, and I had no saying.
Well, he did say no faces, right?
He tried,
and Primera saying, oh, right.
He said, no faces, why would you not wear a helmet? And I went, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then started gluing heads on with faces, because I was just like, they look better.
Yeah, I haven't put any faces on my Terminators yet, actually. I'll have to do one or two.
I've got a couple in the 10 that I've got, because Leviathan, as a sergeant with a breather.
Yeah.
I put that on him. And I think in the multi-part, I think I might have used 2.
Yeah.
I think I might have done, But it's so I was saying yes. So sergeants red molded cross, officers pop goes the monkey cross.
Okay.
So the molded one for them.
Yeah.
And then everybody else now I'm trying to only give, where possible, give transfers to.
Right, okay.
Give it a bit rank and file, quite as well looked after.
Yeah. What a narrative decision your son has made.
Yeah, he's such a smart lad.
He is. Yeah.
Well, to be fair though, I paint something and he comes and he goes, what are you painting? I go, I painted you this. And he goes, oh, that looks great, thanks. And then leaves.
Brilliant.
By the time I finished his army, he'll be married with kids, and I'll go, there you go. Go, well, let's do that. I haven't got time to do that.
Yeah.
I've got a job.
Yeah.
I've been painting it that long.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
It's just never ending. Like, you'll always buy more models, and there'll be...
do you know what? Considering for somebody who hasn't actually put any effort into collecting a Space Marine army, he's got a terrible pile of shame. I think he's getting out of hand, and I think he needs reining in as his father.
Yeah, terrible, awful. You should take some of those models and paint your own army.
Well, don't encourage me, because the next thing I'll be doing a Raptor army.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And you know, the best of it is I'm painting away at this, and my poor Death Guards are just sitting there in a box, unloved.
Are they in a better place?
No, they're bloody not in a better place in a lot of ways. They had a really poor LVO.
Okay.
And then managed to gain points on their barrage tank. They're being their plague based crawler.
Oh yeah.
Got a big slapped with a big nerf when it came to points.
Oh right.
Like, I don't know whether I'm now starting to wonder whether meta works two ways. You know, if you like had a really, really good LVO.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, you were a bit too good there, so we're going to have to probably tweak you a little bit and sort of level you out a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think they also go, you were awful, 20 points on them?
Yeah.
It's like you were too good, you got a bit punished. I get it. And you go, you were awful, you're getting punished as well.
I saw the screenshot from MetaWatch, and because I think they try to keep everything in 45 to 55%.
Yeah.
And the only two that were out of that were at the top, and it was Necrons and Eldar.
Yes.
So everything else
seems to be
was generally, as far as Games Workshop are concerned, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because I've seen AdMech they've been in a spot of bother for quite a while.
Yeah.
All the way. Well, no, they had their time in the sun in 9th.
Yes,
and then
did
they
briefly. They were amazing in 9th.
Yes, and I think they won. Oh, that camera's dead.
That went early.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I think it must have overheated again. That camera always overheats. It's terrible. These two, bomb-proof. So it's just I'll just lean into your close-up.
Okay, do you want me to shuffle over?
No, it's fine. Yes. They had their time in the sun, very, very brief time in the sun, and then I think the nerf, and they've said that they've probably overdid it with the points and stuff like that. And I saw something on Reddit recently, someone like, oh, I've been playing Ammo for a while, and I'm really like losing the will to live with the army. What can I do? And I just saw the headline and was like, oh, poor guy. And then I saw that screenshot shortly afterwards, and I'm like, oh, they're probably not going to do a great deal, because you're in the bracket. Like, if they're in that 45%, they might be at the bottom of it, but they're in.
Yeah.
I wonder if they would make any changes.
Imperial Guard got a kicking again, and they're really not having a great time of it.
Oh, right.
You know, I want to use that thing of going, all of them armies that haven't got a codex yet are doing poorly, but it's not true, because Eldari haven't got a codex yet. Oh. And they're kicking it.
Yeah.
And Black Templars haven't got a codex yet, and they're having a pretty good run.
They're doing pretty good. Oh, right.
So, but yeah, so it has been a bit weird, the sort of nerfing things. For Gene Steel Cult, I was listening to it on the way here, actually. I was listening to Mr. Auspex Tactics.
Oh, wonderful.
And he was saying, in an attempt to rectify some of the problems with firing deck, you know, open top vehicles or vehicles you can fire from in one manner or another, they were saying, the problem being over, like, one-shot weapons, not being able to use them more than once, because it's like classed as the weapon is on the vehicle sort of thing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they're going, and in doing so, there is a completely and ultimate, legitimate, really useful tactic for Gene Stealer Cult that, in the process of trying to clarify what works which way, has completely done away with a tactic for the Gene Stealer Cult of being on an open top vehicle and throwing bombs out as they go. Yeah. Has been massively...
So that's been mullered. Yeah, you can't...
Sort of by accident in a roundabout sort of way.
Oh, know? Right, yeah.
Well, they attempt to clarify something, they've now done this. I don't know. Maybe come their codex, they'll which is apparently this summer.
Yeah,
they might figure it out and give it a bit of a and go. Everybody, this applies to everybody, but not you chaps, because that's your thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. Have we got more questions on decals versus?
43.
Oh wow,
44. Okay. There are quite a few, and lots of similar things and stuff we discussed, but because there's only two options, so I guess there's only
it's not like
someone going neither. I hate Warhammer.
And what I want is the hardcores. You go, neither. I paint them by hand because I am that good.
Freehand, yeah. Somebody did somebody mention freehand? I'm not sure.
Were they sobbing when they mentioned it?
Oh crikey! I would die. I know some people put the decals on and then paint over them.
Yeah.
For that sort of look, I guess it gives you like the stencil and then you can paint it on. But I think if you really matte it down, I guess that's the ultimate sort of. Is that the I don't know. I don't know where I start. I've never done it. What are the benefits?
There's a really lovely chap who has a YouTube channel which is not. He's doing okay, but he's not massive. And he's called, if I remember rightly, and I'm sorry if I've got this wrong, I think he's called Brush and Bolt Gun.
Yeah.
And he's, funny enough, he's from my neck of the woods. And he paints miniatures to a good standard. I'd say high tabletop standard. And then, this thing you go, yeah, that's good. That's like, if that was my captain on a tabletop, I'd be quite happy with that. It's not something I would potentially be entering painting competitions with, but as a strong tabletop standard.
Yeah.
And then he always just taps it off right at the very end of going, and there you go. And then he goes, and now I'll just paint the Blood Angel symbol in by hand. And you go, what? Just going, I'm looking strong, don't get me wrong, strong middle of the roads, and then bang, just to show you that I really can knock out the park.
Oh, that's
and
fun.
He makes it look dead easy. Because what he does is I don't know his name, sadly, and if you do watch, I love your show. But what he's got a very good understanding. He's got a very good understanding of the initial basic shape. Like he knows if you start off doing a cross for Templars and then know right that you're coming off it at this thing and then fill it all in, I haven't got the brain space I haven't got the brain space to freehand things like that.
Is following one of his tutorials, is that like running 100 meters with Usain Bolt and you're like, oh, I'm keeping up with him, and then he just looks at you and goes, no, I'm just going to show you how fast I actually am.
I'm going to stop jogging now.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like he's back in day when he was smashing all the world records. He like when he broke the 100-meter world record, he looked like he was he was celebrating before he got to the finish line.
Yeah, he was celebrating.
He was that far ahead.
He was about 20 meters out, wasn't he?
Yeah. So that's good, and I think that's really good. If somebody's making tutorials and they're painting like within themselves, it means that they're doing it to make a great tutorial rather than go, I'm incredible, this is how I do all this sort of stuff. Like I would find it quite hard to follow a Richard Gray video, for example, because they're quite long and it's not broken up into steps or that kind of thing. So you're watching the whole thing to try and follow along to it. But I don't necessarily watch his videos to go, oh, I'm going to do that.
Well, the problem I have with Richard Gray and Richard,
we mentioned him so frequently.
And Richard got in touch the other day. We got in touch on the comments the other day when we were talking about who'd been our channel of the year. Yeah. And I said it'd been Cult of Paint. I said I really love Richard Gray. I said, but I feel Cult of Paint's just although albeit mildly more accessible for my skill set. Yeah. And Richard Gray would go, what do you mean you can't follow along? Obviously massively tongue in cheek. And I think the problem being is I don't already possess the skill set to follow along.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I already know I can't stipple like that to follow. Going, oh, what did you do? Oh, you did a mixture of a brown and a white and then stippled it. Oh, let me just get me stuff out and go. No, because I need the basic of most basics, how to stipple along with Richard Gray. I need an hour of him teaching me to stipple before I can move on to the next thing.
I think we've found a gap in the market for painters. So we should have if you join our Patreon, there'll be a pack on there, and it's do you want to be Richard Gray ready? It's like couch to 5K.
Couch to 5K before you start doing park runs.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it's like, do you watch Richard Gray's videos and hate yourself? Do you want to learn how to follow along his videos? Hold a dry brush like this.
You know what? That might be the gap in the market for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So first thing we've got to do is kidnap Richard Gray, lock him in here.
No, we can't do that.
show us how that works.
No, because he will very matter of factly go, well, it's just you just do it like this.
I know.
Yeah, you just do it like this. Yeah, it's fine.
That's the worst.
You just do it like it's just a bit of water.
Such a lovely, lovely man. I really, really liked having him on the show, and he was somebody that me and you had liked from very, very early on.
Oh yeah,
and from pretty much when we first started the channel. And I've always loved him. And then when he came on the show, I thought he was going to have some amazing magic bullets of how this all worked.
It's just a lot of practice and time and dedication, isn't it?
Apparently that was it. Apparently he was going to go, well, Jeff, all you've got to do is this. And then he was just going, basically all you've got to do is, Jeff, is be me for the last 20 years.
Yeah, yeah,
go,
yeah.
Is that where I'm going wrong?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it was there was a Death Guard model that he painted in like all non-metallic metal and all that sort of stuff.
That's the one when I was looking, how do I paint Death Guard, I found Richard Gray with the Series 3 Marine Heroes, and it was the one holding the Plague Spewer, and it was that, and I got to the end of it and thought, you've painted what is blatantly a 3D object to the point that it looks like a 2D illustration. Yeah,
it looks like a paint, like you see
the whole thing. If it didn't have a base on it, it looks like it had been painted.
Looks like a painting.
Yeah,
and that, I remember you saying like you used a flesh color for the bronze.
Flesh color to make bronze, to make copper.
And yes. And at the time, I was very, very. I mean, I still haven't tried non-metallic metal. Like, I'd like to give it a go, but I know it's something that you have to put, like, I presume, a lot of time in to make it start looking really, really good. And you were saying he's used a flesh color for copper, and at the time I was like, yeah, that's mental. And then when he was on, you asked him, and he was like, you're just referencing it.
Yeah.
which it is. Yeah. Like, yeah. And you're like, oh yeah.
But I liked his. It's funny because I'm not the world's. Obviously, I'm not the world's biggest fan of NMM. I really like it when I see it done exceptionally well.
Oh, his Dante is incredible.
Dante that he's working on for Golden Demons is Golden Demons is utterly phenomenal, and I like it when I see it. And then Richard Gray very cleverly, because people always have I've shot the cannon across his bow. I've always gone, oh, he looks good in one direction.
Oh,
and then he
yes.
moved Dante around the other day, didn't he? Went, oh, here's it from the other side, just because apparently NMM only looks good in one way. And
with a skull emoji, I saw that and giggled a little bit.
Shots fired from Richard Gray.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I liked his answer was the fact that he said that when you paint in metallics, and although he said he paints in metallics for Titanicus, doesn't he?
Yes.
He said, he paints it in that. But he said,
and his YouTube stuff he does.
Yeah, and he says that. But the problem is, he says that it limits my abilities of what I can create if the shininess and the highlight is already being dictated by something that comes out of a bottle.
Yeah.
Whereas when he does it from building up his way, he can get it to look exactly how he wants.
Yeah.
And it did slightly make me go, oh, do you know, I more see the point of NMM a bit more now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This is as metal or non-metal or as shiny or as dull as I want it to be.
Yes. Yeah, like that control. And because it is a miniature, and say if you have done, I guess a lot of people in entering stuff into Golden Demon, doing like volumetric lighting and all that sort of stuff on the armor. So you're implying a direction of light with your painting.
Yeah.
And side note, I think when I was painting my like Terminator thing, I was usually, I'm right-handed, so if I'm putting a light direction on, it's up and to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And from the front, and then I turned it round and I was like, oh, well, I need to go up and to the left. So it looks similar. But then, again, Cult of Paint, we talk about them a lot. Henry was like, okay, so up and to the right on the front, and I'm going to do up and to the right on the back. Doesn't matter that they're wrong, because you can only see one side of the miniature at the same time. And I was like, that's a very good point.
That's like some of my customers when I show them the back of their head in the mirror and I go, does that look all right? They go, yeah, I'll look, but I never see it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I was
exactly
like,
that.
Other people do.
Yes, yeah.
Imagine though if you put your miniature down and two people looked at one and go, "Hang on a minute, what are you getting on the front?
Yeah,
I tell you on the back, that's not right."
So I guess in Golden Demon, that I guess I don't know. We'd have to ask someone that does. But does everything come from one direction, as it would if it was like a proper sun or whatever? Mm-hmm. But you've got your volumes of light, you've got your implied direction of that light. If you do metallics, you turn the miniature around, and it all still makes sense. But then the highlight of the metallics changes.
Yes.
I think was the explanation that I heard. So then it's if you do non-metallic metal, it all changes cohesively at the same time.
The thing I always find funny a lot of the time, especially with stuff like Richard Gray's, is when he does like amazing NMM miniatures and people go, "Oh well, it only works if you look at it from one way," and you go, like, you're going to be putting that on the tabletop and worrying about where the light direction's coming from. You either just be amazed to have it on a tabletop, or it's going in a glass cabinet somewhere, and you'll only be looking at it from the way
from one angle anyway.
The artist puts it into the glass cabinet and dictates it anyway. You know what I mean? So sometimes as somebody who does grumble about NMM a bit, I also go, if Richard Gray was to ever kindly paint me an amazing Death Guard character and I put it on my table and someone went, "The light source on the other side doesn't," I'd be like, "Really? Is that what you're looking at?" That's your problem.
Yeah. And that would be, and again, something we talked about. I think like if somebody puts a model up and they go, "Oh, I put loads of effort into painting this," and I always use the example of Tau. And I've seen it before where somebody goes, "Here's my cool crisis suit that I painted, super happy," and then someone will say, "Oh, I wish I could like this, but I hate Tau."
And because we talked about this with memes, didn't we?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So if you be like, if you put down like a non-metallic metal or whatever, and somebody went, "I wish I could say that's a great paint job, but I'm very anti non-metallic metal," or "only works from one angle, doesn't it?" Like, you just feel, "Oh, shut up, you dick." like, hey, if it's, as with anything, if it makes you happy and it's legal, don't care.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, you know what I mean.
You do you, babes. Yeah. I'm all for people doing what they enjoy. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Have I ever seen Richard Gray doing freehand, or does he always he mainly just relies back on the decals, doesn't he?
Yeah, certainly on YouTube, a lot of decals. Yeah. I for my sins, I'm not on his Patron, so I can't.
Well, I'd love to be on his Patron, but I wouldn't get any use out of it. I get enough self-loathing watching his videos as it is without paying for the pleasure.
Yes, yeah. His
I thought it was bad, and now it's costing me X amount of money a month to play. So it's even more bad than I thought it was.
His tabletop stuff is incredible to look at. Anyway, certainly for my level. Where if he releases, well, I don't know, he may well have done already, like stages of development for Dante, that would be something I'd love to watch. And see that come together and just consume all 10 hours of it, or however long the video would inevitably be.
Because he's keeping it a little bit on the down low. You see little upgrades of it now and then, but not a lot, because he's also doing Fulgrim, isn't he? Which is Fulgrim Ascended. So snaky Fulgrim.
Snake Boy.
Yeah. So which I don't know whether both of them are going to the same Golden Demon, or one's going to one and one's going to another.
Because I think, did he say when we recorded with him that he's taking quite a lot to Adepticon? He's really sort of going in for it, because his own criticism of himself was that quite often he's a bit unprepared and sort of has to rush at the end. And I imagine there'll still be an inevitable like rush at the end, because it is next month now.
Yes.
So yeah, that's going to be quite tricky, but. Yeah, I haven't seen the Fulgrim or how much he's got done of it. I don't know. But yeah, Golden Demon, not in the UK this year. We haven't talked about that yet.
No.
I mean, maybe that warrants a chat in itself.
Yes, indeed. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because I think, there is paint there is painting competitions across Europe because Golden Demon is the one most people hold in high regard because obviously how big a foothold in the Hobby Games Workshop have.
Yeah.
But there is other ones as well as the is it Crystal Brush? So there is other ones where people enter a whole range of very different things. So I think it is a little bit, so it's for me to say, well, I think it's good that Golden Demon is going into Europe and not being in Britain.
Yeah.
But I also have to go, but it's not, it's not like they're sitting there and it's the only way they can Europeans can enter anything. They have got other ones. But I still think it is good that it's going to Spiel. I think it's quite cool that it's going to get out there. It is a bit weird to think that you could, unlike anything else where you normally have a Golden Demon, that I could be on the Hot Toys and the Lego stand and then wander over to Golden Demon. I find it a bit weird.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's not like a...
You go, the latest version of Cluedo. Oh, look at that new Lego house. Oh, look, they've done a new Boba Fett figure. Oh, Golden Demon. You know what I mean? It's all a bit... I find the concept of that a little bit weird. But I'm not... So for it to be somewhere that is...
We're like, I heard Jenga 2's wild. Oh, Golden Demon.
Yeah, so it's a bit weird that it is going to that sort of thing with it being such a mixed event as Spiel is. But I think it's quite cool that it is going there as well. I do feel a bit sorry for people if they've, haven't, through finances, disability, time off work, family, all of the other potential reasons that keeps people quite close to their home, not having the ability to enter a Golden Demon in the UK. I think I feel sorry for them as well. But I think it being out there, I think also being out there on in events like this, I think is quite cool.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for Golden Demon because I've not seen one before.
No.
So we'll see. Hopefully, all being well, we're at Adepticon this year. So
I consume so much of my miniature content online. Look at all these cool miniatures, and look on Instagram and seeing everything, and talking about non-metallic metal Dantes and all that sort of stuff. Just being at the Las Vegas Open and seeing miniatures that I'd seen before on screen and then in person, like Squidmars, like Manta, so much better in person.
It is. It really is.
And you see the Golden Demon images, and quite often, I think always, Trevelyan does a sort of debrief and looks at the images and the winners and all that sort of stuff. And quite often he complains about the image quality. And
I agree with that. Sometimes the photography of them it's not doing them any favours.
Yeah, and I've looked without having seen the miniature in real life. I sort of look at it and go, and I'm not a competition painter either, and this, that, and the other, whole host of things. And I go, is that just I think of it from a photographer's perspective? How many miniatures would be entered into Golden Demon, and every single one has to have their picture taken? So they'll have a setup and just be going click, right, okay, next one. Apparently some miniatures come back with damage, because they get bumped and stuff, and that's a real shame. But seeing them in real life compared to photos and all that sort of stuff, God, that's just so much better.
I'll give you a real example of a miniature I've only seen as a photograph, and I think the photograph did lead to some people sort of go. I had little grumbles on the interweb of people going, was that the thing that won? And I think because I sometimes think if it's quite a small miniature, and if it's quite a small miniature on only a roughly standard sort of base with, maybe on a small plinth or something, I think sometimes when you see it as a photograph, you can go, well, that's not got a big wow factor. And the one I will point out for this was the Lizard Man Skink.
Yep.
I won it a little while ago.
Yeah,
and I think
he's in every metal painter now.
Is he really?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people were a bit like, "Oh, is that what won?" And I go, "You're judging that on a big white background photograph of this little tiny little figure, which is basically virtually lowest common denominator lizard man you can have.
Yeah,
in the middle of this photograph, and people were a bit underwhelmed, but I did hear from top level painters. I think he even maybe mentioned them yet again. Cult of Paint.
Yeah,
I'd seen it in the flesh and said, "No, you need to have seen it."
Yeah. The quality and execution, because the miniature itself is just a rank and file miniature, isn't it? You're just like quite an unassuming, just like whoop whoop.
Yeah.
But to my understanding, it was just executed flawlessly, and that's why I won.
And then I think miniatures that are bigger, the photograph lends to them better. And I'll give you an example of this because it was a miniature that I've seen first as a photograph and then have since seen in the flesh. And the difference between how wild I was on photograph and how wild I was on flesh in the flesh wasn't massively different. And that was the scratch-built Tau bust of the Fire Warrior with no helmet on. And it was in photograph, I was like, oh my giddy aunt, that's phenomenal.
Yes.
And then I seen it in the flesh and I was like, yeah, that's as phenomenal as I remember it. It didn't suddenly have an extra 5 layers of impressiveness.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more impressive. I've always seen it in the flesh, but I think when you take it down to the tiny little figure and then you have a big white glaring background, you can lose it a little bit.
I wonder if, like, because busts and stuff, like the chap, is it Tom? I can't remember his surname, has entered like 2 of those sort of busts. There was an orc and the Tau.
Yes.
And did he win with the Tau?
Yeah,
bust?
he won open, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. He's a member of staff.
But not overall.
Yeah.
Didn't get the Slayer sword, and then the orc I think came second or third. Like, still podiumed.
Yes.
Still amazing. I wonder where that, because it's scratch built. Well, no, it's 3D printed, but he designed it himself, and it's based on the IP. So, and it's open, so anything can sort of go in. I wonder, like, where the line is between it's a miniatures competition, because the bigger something is, the more it sort of interacts with light.
Yeah.
So,
well, like with that,
do you not have to put as much detail into the painting? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, because I've got to be honest. The way he did it, because the Tau wear like that under leather system before the helmet goes over the top of it.
Yeah.
And in photograph, I thought it was, and then in the flesh, just even that little bit more. So it literally looked like that was just a folded piece of leather that he put.
Oh, okay, so painted.
Really, the paint, and I think it's a bit 6 1/2 dozen the other, isn't it? I think if you're painting big, I think your highlights in certain areas don't need to be as impressive, because once you get big enough, real world light will take over and highlight for you.
Yes, yeah.
And then when you're small, you have to force the highlight into it, otherwise it looks very
because miniature painting, you're imitating the way light reacts to something, but it doesn't because it's too small. Yeah.
But then I think on the flip side of that is, if you're painting like a Tau bust and so on, you've got nowhere to hide, have you? You've nowhere to hide. You can't bury that into the shadow and go, well, I didn't worry about his armpit so much because it would have been in darkness anyway. Yeah. Especially at 32 millimeters, it's going to be. But when you're that big, you've nowhere to hide anything, have you?
No.
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember
everything is on display. Yeah.
And without bringing it round to myself yet again, but I remember my wife talking with her hairdresser, and her hairdresser knowing that I'm a barber. Yeah. And this lady used to cut my wife's hair. She said, "Do you not get your husband to why doesn't your husband cut your hair?" And she said, well, he always says he's not a hairdresser, he wasn't trained as a hairdresser. And the thought of women's hair and trying to deal with how much of it there is terrifies him, which is true. And this hairdresser said, she said, I can't get my head around that, she said, because the thought of barbering would terrify me. And
I like going in with a pair of clippers and stuff.
And my wife said, what's the thing between the way he sees this and how you see the thing? And she said, well, if you barber, and she said, you've nowhere to hide. If you mess it up, it's there. She says, I could cut the occasional bit of your hair, maybe not quite the same length, but there's so much volume of it, I can hide a mistake.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think, and that sort of, in a weird way, sort of lends itself to the whole thing with miniature painting, is the fact if you're working, you expose yourself to everybody by making something that big, you are going to sometimes go, he didn't quite get all the way in there, you know?
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
But saying that, though, the thought of busts, if someone gave me a bust to paint, I think I'd be terrified by it.
Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start.
No. Because I think my brain, because it's deep, I think it must be to some degree having to deconstruct your brain from 32 mil and rebuild it at that size, because a lot of the rules that because we all do it, whether we know we're doing it or we know we're doing it or we don't know it, when we're painting at the size that most of us paint as, there is a set of rules that we are to some degree working inside of.
Yeah.
And then when you get to that size, and then them rules are now out the window, and you have to rethink how things work at that scale.
Yeah, there was because AK do some really good books about like weathering space vehicles and this, that, and the other. And there was one at LVO that I was sort of coveting, and it was how to paint faces. And I looked at it and went, "Oh, I'm going to come back and have another look at that, and I'll probably get it." But I opened it up, and all of the techniques were on busts, and I just thought, I don't know how transferable that is to an everyday miniature.
And I looked at LVO at exactly the same book when you said to me, there's an AK book, because the other 3 that you've bought already are actually really good for
fantastic
painting, like beginner painting spaceships, and then more advanced spaceships, and then the third one's called land ships, which is a lot of things like painting land raiders and dreadnoughts and things like that, and orc vehicles. And I thought, having been impressed by the 3 previous books, I thought, oh, I'll go and have a look at that when I get round to it. And I did the same. I opened it up, looked through it, and went, oh, no, busts, no.
Because I think some of it would be transferable to maybe like an heavy metal face.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines, like the way it interacts with light and this, that, and the other, and where your lights and shadows are, and what's cool and what's warm, and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, I think that video that Duncan did where he was like, here's 3 ways to paint faces. You know, wash it, highlight it again, or, you know, intermediate, and then a bit more of is more relevant for me, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than looking at this book and go, right, how can I scale that down? And then I'd just, because I get it for demonstration purposes, or if you are painting a bust, like it's easier to have like a bigger canvas, I guess. But and they looked exceptional, the results were incredible, but I looked at it and I was like, no, for what I want, that is just beyond me.
Just flipping back for a second about Golden Demon in the UK. Do you think you know, Games Workshop, British company, and then Games Workshop having a major foothold and having a very big following in America.
Yeah.
Do you think that there should always be a Golden Demon in the UK, or do you think it's all right for it to cross the sea out towards Europe?
Because I think Workshop, as it grows, will become an increasingly global company. Like they make their mission statement is all about making stuff in Nottingham in the UK.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a shame that there isn't one, and would be frustrating for people that have been working towards it, assuming that there's going to be one. Because just for people to get up to Nottingham must be a pain in the ass. Like painting coach Lloyd, he travelled it from Wales, finished his squad of 3 in his hotel, I think, and then you're most likely taking a day off work and this, that, and the other, because you put them in on the Friday and then they release them on the Sunday,
so you're
or
there
something
for the
along those.
weekend,
So you're forced to be there for all that time. You're gonna have to take a chunk of time off, just even though Germany's not too far away. Chances are you're getting a flight. So you're gonna have another day either side. So that's what, 5 days. So you're taking a week's holiday almost to go and do it. It is a shame that there isn't one. I think there was a lot of criticism of Warhammer Fest in Adepticon last year. I think there was a bit of criticism of how organised Golden Demon was, and apparently the judges were only selected like the night before, or that this is all conjecture and this, that, and the other, but it like Ninjon spoke about it a bit, and Trevarian and stuff. That's, I think, it's ages since I watched the video. So if they have to take as frustrating as it is, I think it's better that if they take a pause and bring it back better next year, then that's better for the hobby in general, I think. Like, I'd rather there is a great event that people go to and have a good time at, rather than come back and complain about it.
See, because and you're right, and do you remember a while ago, which again caused more controversy again, wasn't it? Do you remember when they had just the Golden Demon event at Nottingham?
Yeah.
And then because it was in Warhammer World, they only accepted
You have to limit the numbers.
and tickets for it
Yeah.
and anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we had from the lovely Facebook group that is Faith and Damnation, a very, very talented painter on there, an Italian gentleman called Francesco Olivieri. He had been working his guts out for something and then couldn't get a ticket.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his Golden Demon for that year.
And then that Golden Demon ticket might have been taken by someone that didn't want to enter but wanted to go and have a look at everything.
Yeah, put in like a really,
So I think,
you know, basically painted miniature just as a way of getting in.
yeah. Because I thought, did they separate the tickets that time? I can't remember.
Oh, I can't remember.
But there was, like, if you want to enter the competition, ideally you should get it. But then the Warhammer World, I think Warhammer World realistically just might not be big enough anymore.
No, I don't think Warhammer World is big enough anymore.
And then,
by a long shot.
So maybe Golden Demon in the UK, they maybe could just have Golden Demon, but Warhammer World's too small.
Mm-hmm.
The issues last year not necessarily were with Golden Demon, but were with Warhammer Fest and how that was organised. So that's taking a break. They don't want to hold Golden Demon at Warhammer World. So if Fest is taking a break, which is always somewhere else now, isn't it?
Yes.
Then Golden Demon has to take a break as well.
Yes.
So maybe they'll only do them at these bigger events.
Yeah, and I think it's sad, isn't it, to think that, you know, because you can't know in advance of, you know, if you, like, you know, take Richard Gray, for example, he said that sometimes he starts painting his next Golden Demon the minute after, virtually the minute after he's been at the last one.
Yeah.
And the thing is if you can't judge them whether you can get a ticket. And so you have to go with, I have to start painting this in the hope that I will get a ticket.
Yeah.
You think it's a real tough situation to make your decision on how it's gonna work. And you know, and I think it's weird because the fact that Games Workshop has any space in the building at all, the fact, you know, that they've got a factory that is also a meeting place for people in a whole host of different ways is to be commended.
Yeah.
You know, but I think, you know, I am now starting to go now. I haven't now been to LVO and having only a week ago went into Games Workshop on a Sunday and there was a tournament on, and you look at it and you go, God, it's about a 15th of the room that 40k was being held on in LVO. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not Games Workshop's fault. The fact that they've got any space for you to play and some really, really pretty boards.
Yeah.
But to go in there and go, oh my giddy aunt, this is just like, do you know what I mean?
I think they're already at the stage where Warhammer World is beginning to not be fit for purpose anymore.
Well, the problem being as well is I think, and you know, and the problem I think is that I think the fact that they can't make stuff fast enough, and also the fact that they can't make plastics fast enough, and the fact that so many people constantly visit Warhammer World. You can go Warhammer World at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday lunchtime, and it will still
be busy.
Loads of people in it.
Yeah.
You go in there and you go, well, this is meant to be the pinnacle of Games Workshop, and you can go in there and find loads of things that aren't available to buy.
Yeah.
And you go, and that, you know, in an ideal shop, you go, well, this is the place where you make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you go, you know, in the ideal version of Warhammer World, you go, sorry, I was after none of this. And they go, oh, is he not one there? 1 second. Fred, can you bring 10 of them? You know, 10 minutes later, some young man will come running up a warehouse and just pan them over and they'll on a shelf. And you go, and realistically, you know, I went in...
Because the warehouse is now at East Midlands Airport, right?
Airport, you know, and you go, so now you go, I wouldn't mind one of them, because I wanted the Tauros for my arbiters, and I thought I'll go in and get one. And the guy was like, "Oh, we haven't got one." But you know, phone us up Tuesday. We might have one by then.
Yeah.
And you're going, no, I want you to just run off and go and find one. You know what I mean? This is the place where it all is. You know? So I think the fact that there is a Warhammer World at all is lovely. The museum's very good. You know, the fact that you can eat there and all the rest of it and game there, and even just walking around the shop, there's some beautiful miniatures to see. But even that, bless it, just like their distribution, I feel is starting to creak.
Yeah. I mean, the growth is difficult, isn't it?
You think about tournaments. I think we're spoiled because there is generally nowhere in the world is running a 900-man person 40k tournament.
Yeah.
It's not even like there's 700s and 600s. This is just LVO is far and away.
Oh yeah.
It's the exception to the norm, isn't it?
Yeah. I think LGT is quite big.
Yeah.
Down in London, but that's like the biggest tournament in the world, I think, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah. Think of all the other rooms doing all of the other games as well. It's just ridiculous.
I started chatting to someone and I was like, "Oh, what are you here to play?" And he was like, "Oh, the Batman tournament." I was like,
is that a game?
Yeah, because they
there was a lot of people walking around with a lot of Marvel Crisis Protocol, wasn't there? There was lots more of that I've seen than I thought there was going to be.
Yeah.
I was a bit jealous because people were going, I was going, "What are you playing?" And they're going, "Oh, I've been in the Marvel Crisis Protocol." And they're going, "All right, let's have a look." And they'd open up, and there's about 6 miniatures in a box. Thinking, I played the wrong game.
Yeah.
Isaac's army would be finished by now.
Yeah, six miniatures. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah. So I don't know how. I don't really know how you fix Golden Demon. I think you just have to bite your lip and go, well, it's our turn every so many turns. And
I mean, maybe it'll be because I think Golden Demon in the UK is probably taking a break because Warhammer Fest is taking a break.
I didn't attend
if it comes back stronger, then great.
Maybe. Well, here's the thing: is if we can do Golden Demon at an event that does a bit of everything, i.e. Spiel.
Yeah, could they do UK Games Expo?
There you go. You took it. Yeah. Why can't? And to be fair,
I wonder if
Games Workshop put a fair bit of effort into Games Expo.
Yeah.
The Terminator got wheeled out there as well.
Yeah.
It's well travelled, that Terminator.
It is well travelled. Yeah.
But the funny thing is that you keep seeing him turn up in crates. You think he'd just deep strike him, wouldn't he? Just to put some cones, he'll be coming there.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Yeah.
To be really cool would be days and days in advance. You put the rapid ingress thing in the ground, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually we put him there. But so they put a fair showing in it at UK Games Expo. So yeah, maybe why not have Golden Demon there?
Is Spiel? No, because Adepticon's not purely games. It's a workshop endorsed event, isn't it? Yeah.
As is Games Expo, and as was LVO.
Yeah.
They all make their presence massively known.
Yeah.
Especially because their shop at LVO dwarfed everything else that was anywhere near it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll be very much the same at Adepticon. In fact, it'll probably be the same crew and the same stand.
I imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think, maybe they could, maybe they could. The way to fix it is to go. Yeah, it'll be a especially because you think it's not like it's short on space as a Birmingham Games Expo. It was a fair old chunk of.
No, it is big, isn't it? Like as far as like the exhibition halls go for like vendors and stuff, compared to LVO, it's
enormous,
huge.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know how much space a Golden Demon takes up.
Well, I don't know, but you're
gonna need a lot of glass cabinets, aren't you?
Yes, but they had their. We were in one bit for Games Expo, and next door was where the tournament was going on. So maybe you could just go around the edge of the tournament. You just thought. Maybe,
yeah.
That's a possibility. Maybe that's the fix going forward as it goes there
to Games Expo. Yeah,
goes there every year.
I can't imagine that. I feel like it has more like gravitas if it's at Fest.
Yeah, I do. I don't understand why Fest isn't going to be a yearly thing. At one point in time, Games Day, as it used to be called, was on every year.
I imagine Fest will go back to being yearly, but I imagine there's a bit of rejigging and figuring out how to do it.
Because it didn't on the surface work very well, did it?
It's like Q Simulator, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is quite funny. I brought up before, but the amount of people complaining they never got a chance to have a go at the new Leviathan or they waited 2 hours to play a round of 10th edition.
Yeah.
And then Games Expo was still before Leviathan was released. And it was literally like tumbleweed. You could just wander up.
Yeah. That was, and I guess maybe that's it. There's just less Warhammer fans at Expo.
There's loads of people, you know. And
I mean, if you had Golden Demon there, then more people would, I guess. But
yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. Maybe, you know, maybe putting one there will bring in more of the other. You know, people go, well, I'm going to go and put a miniature in, or I want to go and look at painted GW miniatures to an extraordinarily high standard. Yeah. And maybe when they're releasing or showing off their latest game that you can play a version of, more people would be there to play it.
Yeah.
You know, because I remember, you know, they had a lovely young lady in a Games Workshop shirt standing at the barriers, and I sort of walked up and sort of stood like she was queuing up, and she went, "Oh no, just go up you go." You know what I mean? There's only you.
Well, yeah, the difference is crazy, isn't it? Bizarre. Yeah.
Oh, I think I may be done.
Yeah.
Are you done?
I think I'm done. Yeah.
Cool. In that case, then.
Yeah.
We didn't on any level come to the conclusion as to what happens over transfers and shoulder pads.
Well, I think we did, but it's incredibly specific.
Yes.
Absolutely right. To the individual's situation.
And I feel like we've moaned terribly about having options for those poor Marine players that don't have options.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think if you're having to make a decision between Sculpted and not, you're in a privileged position, aren't you? There's
the answer. If you're having to make a decision between the two, don't moan.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. You're in a better situation than lots of other chapters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Officially, or 3D printed, whatever.
Don't throw another option on top. Or, you know, just be cool enough to be able to freehand. You know?
Yeah. Or no, just sculpt it out of green stuff. Duh.
Right. I think that might be enough for this nonsense.
Yeah. Thank you, as always, to our patrons and for answering the call and letting us know your opinions on that as well. It's greatly appreciated.
Take care, guys.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.